3:17 in the morning. The rain falls like bullets on the asphalt outside the Starlight Diner, the neon sign flickering red and white against the darkness. Thunder splits the sky. And in the parking lot, on his knees in a puddle that reflects the dying light, kneels the most feared man in Las Vegas. Alejandro Calabrese is 52 years old, 6'2", with shoulders that fill a cashmere coat worth more than most people's houses. His dark hair is silvered at the temples. A thin scar runs from his left eye to his cheekbone, a permanent reminder of a war he won before most people turned 30. His hands, the hands that have signed documents sending men into the desert where they never returned, now tremble uselessly above the body of his 7-year-old daughter. Emma is not breathing. Her skin is the color of slate. Water pours from her mouth. Her lips are blue, purple at the edges, like a flower turning to ash. She lies on the wet asphalt in a yellow raincoat that Alejandro bought her 3 days ago from a store on the Strip, and she has never looked smaller. Carlo stands frozen 10 feet away, his hand still on the door of the black SUV. Sal is beside him, both men in identical dark suits that cost more than a year's salary for anyone making minimum wage. They are trained killers. They have protected Alejandro through 17 years of wars. But they are not doctors. They are not medics. They are men with guns and loyalty codes and absolutely no idea how to save a drowning child. "Call the ambulance," Alejandro says. His voice sounds like a stone crashing through ice. "Call them now." But they are already dialing. The phone rings. The operator speaks. The address is given. And still, Emma does not breathe. Alejandro's hands hover above her chest. He learned CPR once, decades ago, in a basement in Brooklyn. He remembers none of it. His mind is white noise. His empire, his power, his reach, none of it matters. He kneels in the rain like a man made of stone, and he is helpless. Then the door to the diner explodes open. A woman in a stained yellow apron bursts through, her dark hair streaming with rain, her eyes wide. She is 34 years old but looks 40, her face carrying the weight of 8 years of scars from a marriage she never speaks about. Her hands are calloused from 8 years of slinging coffee at the Starlight. Her name is Nora Morales, and she makes $6 an hour plus tips that never add up. She sees the child. She does not hesitate. She drops to her knees beside Emma, and her hands move with a certainty that no amount of fear can shake. Her fingers angle Emma's head back, clear the airway, check for obstructions. She tilts the child's chin forward. She opens Emma's mouth. And without knowing that this child belongs to the most dangerous man in Nevada, without knowing that her next moments will change everything, Nora begins compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. The rhythm comes from a free CPR class at the community center 3 years ago, when she had 2 children and no health insurance and was terrified that if anything happened, she would not know what to do. She learned. She practiced on a dummy made of plastic. She promised herself she would never forget. She breathes into Emma's mouth. The child's chest rises. Then falls. Nothing. 5, 6, 7, 8. Again. Emma's body convulses. Water spurts from her lips like a fountain. Her eyes flutter open. She gasps, a sound like a wounded animal finding breath, and she is alive. Alejandro stares at this soaked stranger in the diner apron. Her hands are shaking. Her lips are pale. She is whispering something over and over, words that sound like prayer, and she does not know that she just saved the life of the only person in the world he loves more than his own survival. Sirens wail in the distance, approaching through the rain. But what Nora Morales did not know was that Douglas Hale, her former landlord and the man who trafficked her for 2 years before she escaped 8 years ago, had been watching the Starlight Diner for exactly 3 weeks. He had tracked her down through a network of informants that stretched across Nevada and into California. He had memorized her schedule, Tuesday through Saturday, graveyard shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. He had waited for the perfect moment to reclaim her, to drag her back into the life she fought so hard to escape. And her act of mercy, her instinctive leap into the rain to save a drowning child, had just painted a target on her back that would collide with the most dangerous man in the city. Before we continue, drop a like if this story has already captured your heart. Share it with someone who needs to know that there are still people who choose to help when others freeze. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming tomorrow. Now let us go back to the beginning, to 72 hours before the storm, when Nora Morales was simply trying to survive one more shift, not knowing that her life was about to change in ways she could never predict. The alarm on Nora's phone screams at 5:45 p.m. She does not hit snooze. She never hits snooze. The electric bill is $43 this month, and she has not yet figured out how to pay it. Her bank account holds $78. Exactly 78. She lies in the darkness of her studio apartment on Maple Street, listening to the sound of the neighboring family arguing through thin walls. One child cries. A man's voice rises. A door slams. The darkness smells like old coffee and the ghost of mildew. Nora's body is a catalogue of pain. Her lower back screams from yesterday's double shift. Her feet throb. The scar on her left wrist pulses with a dull ache, a permanent reminder of the man she used to be married to, the man she had to run from at 2 in the morning with nothing but her daughters and the clothes on their backs. She pulls herself up on her elbows. The bed is a mattress on the floor with 2 thin blankets. Beside her, tucked into the corner of the room, her 2 daughters sleep. Sophia is 9. Miranda is 6. They sleep huddled together like animals seeking warmth, their breathing synchronized, their small bodies curved against each other. Nora stares at them for a long moment. Then she stands. The apartment is a single room with a kitchenette that is not really a kitchen, just a hot plate and a sink that drips. There is no separate bedroom. There is no living room. There is the space, and there is the sound of other people's lives bleeding through every wall, every floor, every ceiling. On the small table covered with a faded tablecloth, a white envelope sits. It arrived 3 days ago, tucked under the door while she was at work. The envelope is from Eastside Properties Management. Nora has not opened it. She knows what it says. She can feel it like a stone in her stomach. Eviction notice. 30 days. She has 2 weeks left before they change the locks. She moves to the hot plate and fills a kettle with water. While it heats, she counts the money in the small ceramic bowl on the counter. A dime. 3 quarters. 2 ones. A 5. A 10. She has been setting aside whatever tips she can grab from the diner. $78. In 2 weeks, she needs $3,500 for the first month's rent and deposit on a new place. The math does not work. The math has never worked. The kettle whistles. She makes instant coffee, black, no sugar because sugar costs money. She drinks it while standing at the counter, watching the darkness outside the window fade to gray. She thinks about calling Marcus. Marcus is her manager at the Starlight. Marcus might know of another shift she could pick up. She could ask for doubles every night. She could work until her body stops working. But then who would be here when the girls woke up? Who would braid Sophia's hair? Who would tell Miranda that the shadows on the wall are just shapes, not monsters? The coffee is bitter and cold by the time she finishes it. She has been standing at the counter for 20 minutes without moving. At 6:30, she wakes the girls. Sophia stirs slowly, her dark eyes opening to the gray light. Miranda does not wake. Nora lifts her, carries her to the small bathroom where they share a sink. She washes both their faces with lukewarm water. She braids Sophia's long hair, her fingers moving through the practice motions. She pulls Miranda's wild curls back with a red rubber band, one of 3 that she has and reuses carefully. They eat breakfast. Nora has stretched a box of cereal across 5 days. Today is day 3. There is enough for 2 more mornings. She pours milk into 3 bowls, adds the cereal, and they eat in silence. The girls do not complain about the cereal. They never complain. They have learned that complaining changes nothing. By 7:45, they are dressed. Sophia wears a uniform shirt that is only slightly too small. Miranda's shoes have a hole in the sole, and Nora has stuffed it with newspaper so it does not show. They walk to school. It is 1.3 miles. It takes them 27 minutes. Nora walks beside them, holding their hands, watching the city wake up around them. Las Vegas in the morning is not beautiful. It is tired. The Strip is 3 miles away, all glitter and noise and money. But this neighborhood, where Nora lives, is empty storefronts and pawn shops and men sitting on corners with nowhere to be. It is where people come when they have failed everywhere else. At the school gates, Sophia and Miranda line up with the other children. Sophia is old enough to understand. Her eyes find Nora's, and there is something ancient in that gaze, something that should not exist in a 9-year-old. Miranda is still young enough to believe that tomorrow will be different. She waves, cheerful, innocent. Nora waves back. By 8 a.m., Nora is walking toward the Starlight Diner. The sun is already hot on her shoulders. She is thinking about rent. She is thinking about the eviction notice. She is thinking about how to tell 2 children that they might have to move again, that this place, this small broken apartment, will not be their home anymore. She does not yet know that in 72 hours, everything will change. The Starlight Diner sits at the corner of 5th and Maple, a checkerboard floor in black and white, red vinyl booths that have been cracked and restitched 100 times, and a counter that runs the length of the window looking out onto the street. The neon sign flickers, Starlight, in red letters. Half of them are burned out. It has said *I_HT for 3 years. Marcus is already at the register, counting the till from the morning shift. He is 58 years old, with a grey beard and the weathered face of someone who has lived through everything and survived nothing. He looks up when Nora enters through the back door. "You're early," he says. "I wanted to see if there were any extra shifts," she says. Her voice is steady. She has learned how to ask for things without letting desperation show. Marcus shakes his head. The gesture contains an entire conversation. He cannot give her extra shifts because there are no extra shifts. Friday nights are slow this time of year. He is already cutting hours. Nora nods. She pulls on her apron, the same yellow one she wore every night for 3 years. There is a coffee stain on the front that will not come out. She ties it around her waist and moves to the prep station. The evening shift starts at 5. The dinner crowd comes in around 6 and leaves by 9. After that, it is quieter. By midnight, there are only regulars, the night people, the lonely people, the ones who cannot sleep or have nowhere else to go. Nora moves through the shift like a ghost. She refills coffee cups. She takes orders. She brings food. She clears plates. She wipes down the counter. A man in a construction uniform leaves her $1 on a $15 bill. A family with 3 children leaves her nothing. An old woman with trembling hands leaves her 2 quarters. By 1 a.m., the diner is almost empty. There is an old man in the corner booth reading a newspaper that is 2 days old. There is a couple in the back, not talking, just sitting across from each other in the kind of silence that means either deep love or deep resentment. There is a woman at the counter drinking black coffee and staring at her phone. Nora wipes down tables. She does not think about tomorrow. She has learned that thinking about tomorrow is a luxury. At 2 a.m., Marcus tells her to take a break. She sits in the small back room where they keep the supplies, and she counts her tips. $17. Combined with the $78 in her account, that is $95. In 2 weeks, she needs $3,500. The math does not work. She closes her eyes. She leans her head against the wall. The wall is cold, and she lets the cold seep into her skin, let it ground her in something real. When she opens her eyes, the clock on the wall reads 3:15. Outside, the sky is still black. Inside, the fluorescent lights hum their endless song. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the diner windows, the rain begins to fall. The rain comes at 2:53 in the morning. Nora is alone in the back room of the Starlight Diner, sitting on a plastic milk crate beside boxes of paper napkins and industrial-sized cans of tomato sauce. The fluorescent light above her head flickers, casting her face in and out of shadow. Her hands rest flat on her thighs. She has just counted her tips for the third time because the number does not change, and she is hoping that repetition might somehow alter mathematics. $42. Always $42. She closes her eyes. The wall behind her is cold through her polyester uniform. The back of her head aches where she has been leaning against it, a dull pressure that sits just above her neck, near the cluster of scars that map the place between her shoulders. 8 years ago, those scars were fresh and bleeding. Now they are white and flat and permanent, like a history written in her skin that she will carry forever. Her phone buzzes. A text from Mrs. Chen, the neighbor watching her children in the studio apartment on Charleston Boulevard. Emma fell asleep. Michael asleep at 9:15. Both fine. Do not worry. She does not respond. Worry is her baseline state now, her resting temperature. It would be easier to stop breathing. The numbers turn over in her mind again. $78 in her account. $42 in tips. $120 total. The rent is due in 14 days. $3,500. She has not told her children about the pink eviction notice taped inside her bathroom mirror, behind the door where they will not see it when they brush their teeth. Her son Michael is 9. Her daughter is 6. They deserve not to know that their mother cannot do the math that saves them. She stands. She walks to the front of the diner. The night is thick and strange. The air presses against the windows like something alive. Outside, the sky has turned a color between purple and black, and clouds are moving in from the desert at a speed that does not feel natural. The temperature has dropped. Nora can feel it even through the glass, a weight shifting in the atmosphere, a warning written in the air. She wipes down the counter. There are only 3 customers left. An old man in a construction uniform reading a newspaper. A couple in booth 7 who have not spoken to each other in 40 minutes. A woman alone at the counter nursing black coffee, her phone screen reflecting blue light onto her face. Marcus, the night manager, emerges from the kitchen. He is 48, with a deep line between his eyebrows from years of trying to keep the Starlight Diner running on a budget that does not support running anything. He looks at Nora. "Storm coming," he says. His voice is casual, the way someone mentions weather, but his eyes move to the windows and stay there. "I can feel it." "Should we close early?" Nora asks. "Not your decision," he says. "Not mine either. Corporate says we stay open 24 hours. So we stay open." He pauses. "But lock the front door after the couple leaves. Use the side entrance if anyone else comes in." "Okay," Nora says. She does not ask why. She has learned not to ask questions. Questions require answers that sometimes carry weight. The couple leaves at 3:05. The old man leaves at 3:19. The woman with the phone leaves at 3:22, leaving a $1 tip on a $5 coffee, an act of kindness that Nora feels in her chest like a small stone. Nora locks the front door. The deadbolt slides into place with a sound like a promise being broken. The rain starts 5 minutes later. It does not begin gently. It arrives like something breaking, like water has been held back by a dam and the dam has failed. The drops are fat and heavy, hitting the windows with enough force to sound like thrown stones. Within 30 seconds, the street outside becomes a river. The water runs fast, carrying leaves and plastic bags and things Nora cannot identify. The gutters cannot handle it. The drainage system was not designed for this kind of volume, this kind of velocity. Marcus stands at the window beside her. They watch the storm together without speaking. "Never seen it move that fast," he says finally. "The water, I mean. It's rising like." He does not finish. He does not need to. Nora thinks of her children, for miles away, safe in the studio apartment with Mrs. Chen. She thinks of the second-floor window in their bedroom. She thinks of whether water rises to second floors when it comes that fast, that heavy. She thinks of things she should not think about because thinking about them serves no purpose. The rain intensifies. Meanwhile, 3 miles away in his penthouse office on the 34th floor of the Calabrese building, Alejandro Calabrese is reviewing reports. He is 41 years old, with dark hair and eyes that miss nothing. His suit is black, tailored, worth $4,000, more than Nora makes in 2 months. He wears a gold watch that caught the light of the city below, and on his left ring finger, a silver band with no markings. His face is a structure of angles and control. There is a scar running from the outer corner of his left eye down to his cheekbone, the result of a fight when he was 17. He does not talk about how it happened. Carlo and Sal, his closest lieutenants, know better than to ask. Carlo stands at the window. Sal is reviewing security feeds on a laptop. Neither of them looks up when Alejandro speaks. "Where is Emma?" he asks. The question is not demanding. It is simply a question, but it contains within it the weight of a man who does not ask twice. "Pool party in Henderson," Carlo says. "With her nanny. She will be home by midnight." Alejandro checks his watch. 11:07 p.m. "The nanny is trained?" he asks. "Fully vetted," Sal responds. 10 years of prior employment. 0 incidents. Alejandro nods. He returns to the reports. Numbers scroll across the screen in front of him: profit margins, territory assessments, legitimate business acquisitions. He has spent the last 5 years converting his empire. The cocaine and the guns and the money laundering are being carefully, methodically replaced with real estate and restaurants and construction companies. The dangerous life is becoming a legal life. He swore to himself this would happen. He swore it the day his daughter was born, the day she was placed in his arms, and he felt his heart move in a way he did not know was possible. No child of his would grow up the way he did. No child would watch their father's hands make them bleed. No child would learn that love and violence were the same thing. He has kept that promise. But Alejandro does not know that the weather reports have been upgraded. He does not know that the rain moving in from the desert is part of a monsoon system that has accelerated faster than meteorologists predicted. He does not know that the Henderson drainage system was built in 1984 and has not been updated since. He does not know that his daughter's nanny, a woman named Patricia who has never been in a flood before, will panic when the water starts rising, when the water enters the first floor of the community center where the pool party is being held, when the water is still rising and no one is making an announcement and no one seems to know what to do. He simply sits in his office, reviews his reports, and believes the night is ordinary. For miles in the opposite direction, in a warehouse near the airport, a different man stands over a laptop. Douglas Hale is 53 years old, with grey threading through his black hair and a network of small capillaries broken across his nose, the result of 30 years of drinking and anger. His hands are thick, with knuckles that have connected with faces. His eyes are the color of concrete. On the laptop screen in front of him are 8 photographs. The same woman, captured from different angles. Waitress uniform. Dark hair pulled back. Her face turned away from the cameras, but there is a pattern to her shifts. There is a routine. There is data that can be converted into prediction, and prediction into action. She has been in Vegas for 8 months, he says to the man standing beside him. This man is younger, maybe 30, with a neck tattoo and a scar through his left eyebrow. 8 months of running. 8 months of thinking she is invisible. She got help, the younger man says. It is not a question. Obviously, Hale says. No woman gets out of the operation and survives 8 months without help. Someone is feeding her, sheltering her, moving her. It does not matter. He turns from the screen. His face is very still. She left with property. She left with information. She left with my inventory. And she has been in Vegas, working at the same diner, every night for 8 months. He closes the laptop. Call Torres. Call Valdez. Tell them we move in 2 days. Tell them to bring trucks. We are bringing her home. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. The quiet certainty in his words carries more weight than any shout. The younger man nods and walks away to make the calls. Douglas Hale does not know that his timeline is about to become irrelevant. He does not know that the woman he is hunting has accidentally connected herself to the most dangerous man in Las Vegas. He does not know that his careful planning, his methodical approach, his absolute certainty that she belongs to him, he does not know that any of this is about to be erased. He simply stands in the warehouse, in the dark, confident in a future that is already beginning to change. 3 hours away, at the Bellagio, a charity gala is in its final hours. The ballroom is all white and gold, with chandeliers that cost more than houses. Women in dresses worth tens of thousands of dollars move through the space like elegant predators. Men in tuxedos discuss profit margins. Cordelia Blackwood stands near the champagne fountain. She is 43, with blonde hair highlighted to the point of artificiality and a face that has been pulled so tight her expressions are limited to variations of cold. She wears a diamond necklace that catches the light and throws it back in fractured patterns. Her dress is white silk. Her heels are 4 inches. She is the wife of a casino owner who died 3 years ago, leaving her $200 million and a thirst for power that his wealth could not satisfy. The banker beside her is listening to her plan. His name is Richard. He manages money for the city's most important people. He knows things. Calabrese has gone soft, Cordelia says. Her voice is like honey with poison mixed in. He is focused on legitimacy. Real estate. Restaurants. He has taken his eye off what actually matters. He still controls the territory, Richard says carefully. For now, Cordelia corrects. But power abhors a vacuum, and Calabrese is creating one by choice. All it takes is the right pressure applied to the right place. She sips her champagne. And then everything shifts. She is thinking about the Starlight Diner. She is thinking about how she learned, 2 weeks ago, that a woman working there caught the attention of Alejandro Calabrese. She is thinking about how beautiful it would be to use that connection as leverage. She is thinking about everything she can take from him. She does not know the exact details yet. But she will learn them. She always does. The rain outside the Bellagio is beginning to intensify. None of the people inside notice. They are too far above the streets to understand what is happening below. Back at the diner, the water is rising. It has been raining for 13 minutes, and the water in the street has climbed to 6 inches. It is moving faster than it should, the current stronger, the flow more violent. The gutters are overflowing. The storm drains are backed up and failing. The desert, which usually drinks rainfall with desperate thirst, is too saturated to absorb any more. Marcus is on the phone with the owner, a man named Vincent who lives in Scottsdale and does not answer calls at 3:37 in the morning. Marcus leaves a message. Water is rising out there, he says. It's moving fast. I'm going to stay. I'm going to keep the diner open. If people need shelter, they need somewhere to go. Nora is refilling the coffee. Her hands move automatically, filling ceramic cups, carrying them to the tables. The couple is back, they have nowhere to go, so they ordered coffee and pie and are sitting in booth 3, still not talking, still existing in their separate silences. At 3:42, the power flickers. At 3:44, a young girl appears at the side entrance, soaking wet, shaking, barely coherent, her mouth blue with cold and her eyes wide and unseeing with shock. She is 7 years old. Her name is Emma Calabrese. She is drowning in air. At 3:27 in the morning, the diner door explodes open. Water floods across the checkered floor like a blade cutting through the darkness. A small girl, soaking wet and gasping, stumbles inside. She is 7 years old. Her name is Emma Calabrese. She cannot breathe. Nora drops the coffee pot. It shatters against the tiles, but she does not notice the sound or the burning on her hands. She runs. Outside, the rain hammers like bullets. The parking lot has become a small river, the current moving faster than it should, stronger than desert rain has any right to be. Emma is face down near the dumpster, her designer dress clinging to her shaking frame like a second skin. Water fills her lungs. Her lips are blue. Nora pulls her onto the asphalt. She does not think. She does not hesitate. Her hands find the girl's chest and begin compressions. 1, 2, 3. The rain pelts her face. Thunder drowns out her counting. She is soaked through, her apron heavy with water, her hair plastered to her face, and none of it matters because this child is dying. 2 black SUVs screech into the parking lot. Men in tailored suits jump out, weapons drawn, then freeze. They have protocols. They have training. They have orders for every scenario. But they do not have a protocol for this, their boss's daughter on the ground, unconscious and lifeless, and a stranger with exhausted eyes and trembling hands saving her. Emma coughs. Water sprays from her mouth. She gasps. Her eyes flutter. The third SUV arrives. Alejandro Calabrese steps out into the rain, and for the first time in 15 years, Carlo and Sal see something they have never seen before. They see their boss's composure shatter like glass. He drops to his knees on the wet asphalt beside Emma. His expensive suit soaks through. His cashmere coat, worth more than Nora's annual salary, clings to his broad shoulders. None of it matters. He sees only his daughter breathing, alive, conscious in the arms of a stranger. Nora cradles Emma, checking her pulse with practiced hands. She asks, does she need a hospital? Is she okay? Should we call someone? Alejandro's eyes are storm grey, intense, burning with something between terror and gratitude. He is 6 feet 2 inches tall, muscular, with dark hair silvered at the temples and a scar running from his left eye to his cheekbone. His hands shake as he lifts Emma into his arms. Get the car, he says to Carlo, his voice like thunder wrapped in ice. He turns back to Nora, kneeling in the rain, her clothes dripping, her exhaustion written in every line of her face. Your name, he says. Not a question. Nora. Nora Morales. Will she be okay? Because of you, yes. He turns toward the arriving car, then looks back at her one final time. 6 words that will change everything. I owe you a debt. Nora shakes her head. She says she was just doing what anyone would do. She goes back inside to finish her shift, unaware that across the street, Douglas Hale's surveillance camera captured the entire scene. Unaware that she just made herself the most valuable target in 2 criminal networks. For days later, at 9 p.m., a knock comes on her studio apartment door. She opens it. 2 men in dark suits stand in the hallway. They do not smile. They do not introduce themselves. One hands her an envelope and leaves. Nora's hands shake as she opens it. $35,000 in cashier's checks. Crisp. Exact. Clean. The amount of her debt due in 2 weeks, the foreclosure notice already slipped under her door, now erased. Beneath the checks is a note on expensive cardstock, handwritten in bold script, for the woman who saved my daughter. Let me repay the debt. AC. In her corner, her 2 children sleep. Sophia is 9. Miguel is 6. They have never owned new clothes. They have never asked for more than she could give, which was never enough. She spreads the checks across her kitchen table and sits there until dawn. The next morning, she takes the address from the note, a private office building downtown with marble lobbies and security that waves her through because they were told to expect her. The elevator opens directly into a penthouse suite 43 floors above the city. Alejandro sits behind a desk of dark wood. Emma colors at a small table by the window, her pencils arranged in perfect rows. When she sees Nora, she runs. You came back, Emma says, wrapping her arms around Nora's legs. Nora's resolve cracks. Alejandro stands. He wears an open white shirt showing his chest, dark slacks, a gold watch. His movements are deliberate, controlled, each one calculated. But when he looks at Nora, something in his expression shifts. "I cannot accept this," Nora says, her voice barely a whisper. "The money. I cannot. My daughter is alive because of you." His voice is deep and solid like an oath. $35,000 is nothing compared to that. I do not want your money. I do not want anything from you. He studies her, the exhaustion etched around her eyes, the way she holds herself like someone used to being hurt, the scars on her hands that no waitress job should create. He knows that look. He wore that look once. "Then let me offer you something else," he says. "Emma needs a nanny. The previous one abandoned her in a storm. I need someone I trust. Someone who acts when others freeze." Emma tugs on Nora's sleeve. "Will you stay with me?" The salary is $12,000 per month, Alejandro continues. Housing included in a secure building. Health insurance for you and your children. Nora's mind races. That is more than she makes in 6 months at the diner. That is 8 years of her savings in 1 month. That is impossible. "Why would you trust a stranger?" she asks. "You saved her without knowing who I was." He pauses. His eyes never leave hers. "That is the only reference I need." She says yes. Over the next 2 weeks, her entire life reconstructs itself. She moves into a 3-bedroom apartment in Alejandro's building. Sophia and Miguel stare at their own rooms in disbelief, at the toys in Emma's play area, at the food in the refrigerator. Sophia asks if they are rich now. "No," Nora says. "We are just lucky." She is lying. Luck had nothing to do with it. At the park, while Carlo and Sal watch from a distance, Emma asks about the scars on Nora's wrists, visible when her sleeve rides up. "They are old," Nora says. "Not important." "My dad has scars too," Emma says. "Under his shirt. From when his father hurt him. He said he never lets anyone hurt the people he loves." Nora's eyes fill with tears. She understands now why Alejandro guards his daughter with such ferocity, why he was willing to kneel in the rain for her, why he moves through the world like a man protecting something sacred. At dinner in Alejandro's private residence, he tells Nora his own story. Growing up in Newark. His father's belt. His mother's bruises. The night he was 14 and fought back and ran and never stopped running until he built something no one could take from him. Nora listens. She sees herself in his words. "Some storms we survive," she says quietly. "Some we just learn to live with." "You do not have to live with yours alone anymore," Alejandro says. Carlo, standing guard by the door, exchanges a look with Sal that neither has seen in 15 years. Something has shifted in their boss. Something dangerous and tender and unprecedented. Meanwhile, 3 blocks away in a mansion in Summerlin, Douglas Hale sits across from Cordelia Blackwood. She pours scotch into crystal glasses. "He is expanding into legitimate business," Cordelia says. Her voice drips with false warmth. She is 48 years old, blonde, dressed in designer clothes that whisper money. Becoming untouchable. But everyone has a weakness. She shows Hale photographs. Nora with Emma. Nora at the park. Nora in the building lobby. Hale's face goes cold. "That woman ran from me 8 years ago. Cost me a fortune. She has 2 children I can use as leverage. If we take her, we hurt him and reclaim my asset. And I gain access to his territory when he is distracted." Cordelia smiles. "We move in 3 weeks. Hale describes what he did to women who tried to leave his network. The examples he made. His voice is venom wrapped in a smile. Cordelia does not flinch. She has already calculated the profit in his cruelty. That night, Nora puts Emma to bed. She reads from her grandmother's recipe book, a worn leather journal filled with handwritten recipes and notes in the margins. The only thing she took when she ran from Hale 8 years ago. Emma asks what the notes mean. My grandmother's memories, Nora says. Stories between the lines. What Emma does not know is that between those same lines, Nora has been writing her own notes in invisible ink for 8 years. Names. Dates. Locations of Hale's operation. Everything she witnessed. Everything she survived. Insurance, she calls it in her mind. In case she ever found someone she could trust enough to expose him. She closes the recipe book and sets it beneath Emma's pillow, where the girl sleeps with her hand on the leather cover, trusting and safe and unaware that she is sleeping on evidence that could destroy an empire. Outside, the Las Vegas wind moves through the city like a blade wrapped in ice. In her mansion, Cordelia makes a phone call. Increase the surveillance, she says. 3 weeks, Douglas. Then we move. And in the penthouse above the city, Alejandro stands at the window watching the desert lights flicker below, unaware that the storm is coming, that the rain is gathering, that in 21 days, his entire world will burn. 1 hour before the diner's front door would shatter with violence, Nora Morales sat on the cold tile floor of her apartment bathroom, her spine pressed against the wall that had held her through 8 years of running. The apartment was dark except for the thin light bleeding under the door, a studio space so small that her children's coughs in the next room traveled through the walls like whispers. She held a plastic bottle in her hands. 32 sleeping pills, prescribed to her 3 months ago by a doctor who saw only the surface exhaustion and not the depth of the fear. Her hands trembled as she tilted the bottle. 1 pill rolled into her palm, white and small and full of a promise she had been tempted by before. The scars running across her back, thin, precise lines like a map of someone else's rage, burned as they always did when terror crept into her bones. For 8 days now, she had seen the same black sedan circling her neighborhood. Hale's men. She knew their patterns, the way they waited, the way they were closing in like predators who had finally caught the scent of prey they thought they had lost. She lifted the pill toward her mouth. The motion was automatic, rehearsed in her mind 1,000 times. If she swallowed 32 of these, her children would wake in the morning to find her gone. Sophia and Miguel would be taken by Child Protective Services. They would be placed in foster homes. They would grow up without understanding why their mother abandoned them. But they would never see her dragged screaming across a parking lot. They would never become leverage in Hale's hands. They would never watch what he did to women who tried to run. Through the wall, Miguel coughed. A small sound, 3 years old and rattling in his chest from the cold that had swept through the neighborhood 2 weeks ago. Not a serious cough. Just a child's throat clearing in sleep. But it stopped Nora's hand mid-motion. The pill hovered between her lips and the bathroom air that smelled like old bleach and the faint remains of soap she could no longer afford to buy. She thought of Emma Calabrese, 7 years old and asleep now in a bedroom twice the size of Nora's entire apartment, her small hand clutching the leather cover of Nora's grandmother's recipe book. The girl had asked that afternoon, while Nora braided her hair by the window, "Will you always stay? Everyone else leaves." Not a question. A statement dressed as a question. A child's way of asking the universe not to take another person away. Nora lowered the pill. Her hand shook so violently the bottle nearly fell from her fingers. She gripped the edge of the sink and pulled herself to standing, her knees buckling slightly, her vision swimming with tears she had been holding since the moment she saw Hale's car 3 blocks from the diner. She turned on the cold water. It ran brown for a moment, the pipes in this building were failing like everything else in her life, then cleared. She splashed her face, felt the water trace the contours of exhaustion, the hollows under her eyes, the lines that made her look older than her 31 years. In the mirror, a woman stared back at her. Not the victim she had been 8 years ago. Not the woman who had crawled away from Hale's operation with nothing but the clothes on her back and her grandmother's recipe book hidden in her jacket. This woman had fought. This woman had worked 2 jobs, then 3. This woman had saved $78.13 by skipping meals so her children could eat. This woman had gotten Sophia into the accelerated program at school. This woman had helped Emma Calabrese breathe when the storm tried to steal her last breath. She closed the bottle of pills and set it on the sink. Then she wrapped it in a plastic bag, walked it to the kitchen, and placed it in the trash beneath coffee grounds and empty cans, buried so deep that no part of her could find it again in the darkness. The clock on the microwave read 1:43 a.m. She walked to Sophia's bed. Her daughter slept curled on her side, one hand extended toward the wall as if reaching for her mother even in dreams. Nora kissed her forehead, breathed in the smell of her daughter's hair, and felt something shift inside her chest. Not hope. Hope was a luxury she could not afford. Something harder than hope. Something that felt like survival carved into bone. She went to Miguel's crib. Her son slept with his thumb in his mouth, his blanket twisted around his small frame. His breathing was clear now, the cough settled. She straightened the blanket. She touched his cheek, warm and soft, and made a choice that would change everything. She would not run anymore. She would not hide. She would not swallow pills and disappear. Instead, she would face what was coming. She would work her last shift at the Starlight Diner, the one shift per week Tony had let her keep out of loyalty, out of kindness, out of the understanding that some people need to remember who they are. And whatever happened in that diner, whatever Hale brought through that door, she would be ready. The clock on the wall ticked toward 2 a.m. Outside, the Las Vegas wind moved through the city streets like a blade wrapped in ice. 3 miles away, in a penthouse above the sprawling lights of the desert, Alejandro Calabrese stood at his window, unaware that the storm was gathering directly beneath him. 10 blocks in the opposite direction, Cordelia Blackwood made a phone call in the darkness of her mansion. Her voice was thin, precise, full of calculation. "Douglas, it is time. The surveillance shows she closes the diner at 2:50 a.m. She is alone. Her children are with the neighbor tonight. Move now." At 2:15 a.m., Nora pulled on her waitress uniform, the one she had worn for 5 years, the hem coming loose on the right side, the apron faded from 1,000 washings. She braided her dark hair back, applied lipstick the color of old brick, and looked at herself in the mirror one final time. There was fear in her eyes. There was also something that looked like clarity. She arrived at the Starlight Diner at 2:40 a.m. The checkered floor gleamed under the fluorescent lights. The neon signs in the windows buzzed their tired song. She unlocked the back door and switched on the kitchen lights. The smell of old grease and bleach hung in the still air. She knew what was coming. She had always known. The only choice she had left was whether to meet it standing up. The clock on the kitchen wall read 2:56 a.m. when the back door opened. The first thing she saw was Douglas Hale's shadow stretching across the checkered floor like something that could consume light. He was older than she remembered, his face thickened by years of excess, his suit expensive but not well-fitted, hanging on a body that had grown soft with power rather than earned it. His eyes were the same as they had always been. Empty. Hungry. Incapable of seeing another human being as anything more than a transaction. 3 men stood behind him. Nora's hands gripped the counter. The fluorescent lights hummed their sickly tune. The refrigerator in the corner cycled on with a mechanical shudder. And somewhere in the darkness of her mind, she heard the words of the choice she had made an hour ago in her bathroom. She would not run. She would not hide. She would fight. 13 months. That was how long Nora had been standing on the edge of a life she never thought possible. The penthouse balcony stretched before her, wrapping around the corner of a downtown tower, and from here she could see the entire strip unfold like a promise made in neon and light. The sun hung low on the horizon, bleeding orange and crimson into the Nevada sky. The wind carried the faint sound of traffic 40 stories below, a distant hum that felt almost gentle from this height. She wore a black dress now instead of a waitress uniform. Her hair was styled, not braided back for a shift. Her nails were clean, filed, painted the color of deep wine. She looked like someone who belonged in a place like this. Someone who had always belonged. The transformation still surprised her when she caught her reflection in glass. The organization had grown beyond what she imagined possible. House of Hope, she had named it. The name was simple because the work was not complicated in theory, only in execution. She helped other survivors navigate the legal system, connected them with housing resources, set up education funds for their children. 143 women had walked through her doors. 138 of them had rebuilt their lives. The work consumed her in a way that healed her. Sophia wanted to be a lawyer now. That was the thing that made Nora's chest tight when she thought about it. Her daughter, who had eaten cold beans from a can while her mother worked double shifts, now sat in tutoring sessions preparing for advanced placement courses. Miguel played piano in his school recital last month. His teacher said he had natural talent, a gift for rhythm and emotion that suggested years of potential. The money had come from an anonymous donor. Nora knew who it was. She had always known. But Alejandro had stayed away. For months of distance. For months of text messages that said he was in Rome, then Milan, then Barcelona, expanding his legitimate businesses, transferring assets, building something that looked clean on paper and in the eyes of federal investigators. He was creating legitimate wealth to replace the empire that had been built on darkness. The transformation was real. It was also strategic. And it was also, she suspected, an act of love expressed through absence. She had convinced herself it was better this way. A man like Alejandro, even legitimized, even gentled by his own daughter and the woman he had saved, still carried the weight of everything he had been. He belonged in a world of boardrooms and negotiations, not tied to a woman carrying the weight of trafficking trauma. She had told herself this story so many times it had become something she almost believed. The balcony door opened behind her. She turned. Alejandro stood in the doorway, backlit by the soft glow of the penthouse interior. He wore a dark suit, tailored, expensive, the fabric catching the last light. His hair was longer than she remembered, touching his collar, streaked with silver at the temples that made him look older and somehow more beautiful. His face showed exhaustion from travel, from building, from carrying the burden of transformation. But his eyes were the same eyes that had looked at her across that diner kitchen and seen someone worth saving. They stared at each other across the space of the balcony. The city hummed below them. The wind moved through her hair. "I heard you were here," he said. His voice was deep and solid like an oath. "Cordelia's old penthouse. You bought it." "The city auctioned it," Nora replied, her own voice steady, though her hands gripped the balcony railing. "I wanted to reclaim something she tried to destroy." He stepped onto the balcony. He did not reach for her immediately. He stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body, the presence of him taking up space in the air between them. Close but not touching. The restraint was its own kind of pain. "I stayed away because I thought you needed space," he said. "Space to build your life without me casting a shadow over it. You have a business now. Your children are thriving. You have made yourself into something beautiful and whole without needing me to validate it. That took courage. And I convinced myself you had moved on," Nora said quietly. "To someone from your world. Someone without my history. Someone without scars that make them difficult to love." Alejandro turned to face her fully. His jaw was tight. His hands clenched at his sides. "There is no one else," he said. The words came out rough, like they had been carved from stone inside his chest. "There has been no one else since the night you saved Emma. You are the only person who ever saw me as something more than the violence I came from. You acted when everyone else froze. You trusted me with your pain when you could have run. I have carried this truth for a year, and I cannot carry it alone anymore. Nora, I love you." The vulnerability in his confession hit her like a blade wrapped in ice. This man who commanded empires, who had destroyed her enemies without hesitation, who had built his entire existence on the principle that showing weakness was the same as showing a target, he stood before her trembling with the fear of rejection. His hands trembled. His breathing was uneven. He was terrified. She took a breath. I am a single mother with 2 kids and scars I will carry forever, she said. You could have anyone, Alejandro. Anyone at all. I do not want anyone, he replied. His voice cracked slightly on the words. I want you. Your strength. Your courage. The way you fight for people who cannot fight for themselves. I want every scar, every story, every piece of you. I want to build a life where Emma has a mother who understands what it means to be invisible, and your children have a father who will spend the rest of his life making sure they never are. Let me be the family you choose. Not because of debts or obligations, but because we both know what it means to survive hell and find something worth protecting on the other side. He reached for her hand. She took it. His grip was warm. His palm was calloused from the things he had done, the things he had carried. She interlaced her fingers with his and let him pull her close. His forehead rested against hers. His breathing steadied. She could feel his heartbeat through the fabric of his suit, racing, slowing, finding rhythm with hers. I love you too, Nora whispered. I have loved you since you sat across from me in that kitchen and let me see that you were just as broken as I was. She kissed him. Her hands cupped his face, feeling the line of his jaw, the warmth of his skin. Her tears came freely, streaming down her cheeks, and he kissed them away with a tenderness that seemed impossible in a man who had commanded such violence. They stood on the balcony as the sun descended toward the horizon, 2 people who had clawed their way out of different kinds of darkness finding light in each other. The city spread out below them, indifferent and beautiful, full of people who would never know what it took to survive, to heal, to choose to love again after the world had tried to destroy you. Behind them, inside the penthouse, Emma appeared in the doorway with Sofia and Miguel on either side. The 3 children stood watching, smiling, understanding something fundamental about what they were witnessing. Carlo and Sal stood further back, still protective, still present. Took him long enough, Carlo muttered, his voice rough with something that might have been affection. Sal nodded, his expression unreadable. 13 months of him being impossible to work with because he would not admit his feelings. The man nearly started a war in Prague over nothing just to distract himself. But Nora and Alejandro did not hear them. They were lost in each other, in the moment that felt like the ending of one story and the beginning of another. The wind carried the sound of the city up to them, that constant hum of human movement and hope and desperation and triumph all mixed together into something that sounded almost like music. 6 months later, they married in a private garden ceremony. The guest list was small by design. Sofia and Miguel stood beside their mother. Emma was the flower girl, tiny and serious in her white dress. Carlo and Sal watched from the back, still shadows, still protective, still loyal. The officiant spoke about family built not by blood but by choice, about the courage it took to choose each other when the world had shown you its cruelest face. When Alejandro slid the ring onto Nora's finger, his voice was steady and clear. You saved my daughter, he said. And in doing so, you saved me from a life where I believed trust was weakness. You are my family. Nora looked at her children, at Emma, at the men who had become brothers to her through violence and redemption. You gave me a future when I had nothing but fear and $78, she said. You are my family. They kissed as the sun set behind them, painting the sky in colors that looked like hope. 3 years later, Nora stood at a conference podium in front of an audience of 300 people. The scars on her back were visible through the open back of her dress. She no longer hid them. They were proof that she had survived. I walked into that diner 8 years ago with $78 and no hope, she said, her voice strong and clear. I walked out of it with a family I never knew I could have. Not because of money or power, but because one man saw me when I was invisible, and I saw him when he thought he was unforgivable. We saved each other. That is what family does. Not always bound by blood, but by those who choose to stay when the storm arrives. In the front row, Alejandro sat watching her with pride burning in his eyes. Emma sat beside him, already imagining the universities she would attend. Sofia and Miguel listened to their mother's story, hearing it as the truth of their own transformation. After the speech, a young woman approached Nora. She trembled as she spoke. I need help, the woman whispered. I do not know how to leave. I do not know if it is even possible. Nora took her hand. You are not alone anymore, she said. That part of your story is over. This is where the new chapter begins. If this story moved you, drop a like right now and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and turn on notifications because tomorrow's story will change how you see second chances. Comment below, what would you do if someone saved the person you love most? I read every single one. This is the channel where every story reminds you that even in the darkest storms, one act of courage can change everything. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We wish you good health, a joyful life, and days filled with peace and happiness. See you in the next video.